Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Prevention Voices Washington webinar series about Washington Legislature 101. Today's webinar is going to be on session flow. My name is Megan Moore. I use she, her pronouns, and I am from Kitsap Public Health District.
And hi, everyone. My name is Penny Lipsu. I also use she, her pronouns, and I work for the American Heart Association focused on Washington State. So who is the legislature? It's important to know, and it can get really confusing, especially for Washington State. We use the same terms that the national federal government uses when we're talking about the two chambers of the legislative branch of the government. So it's bicameral, two houses. We have the House and the Senate, which is also the same names on the federal level that we use on the state level. In Washington State, we have a part-time legislature, which is also known as a citizen legislature. So technically, the Senate members and the House of Representative members, they're really only working full-time while the state is in legislative session. And the legislative sessions are broken into these 2-year cycles, also known as the Biennium. And the long session, I believe, starts on odd years. And it's 105 days. And the main goal of the long session usually starts the second week of January every year, short or long, is to pass the state budget along with passing and fixing state law. In the state budget, there are 3 main parts of the budget that is helpful to know. There's the capital, which is like the construction budget. There is the transportation budget, and then there's the operating budget, which funds all the things that we really care about around like social services and different public health programs. And then the short session is where we kind of take what hasn't passed and continue to work on those bills, and also look at the budget and see, like, you know, we often call the short session a supplemental budget year, and try to fix, you know, things that aren't really aligning well, or if the economy has changed, like what needs to be fixed to keep things balanced.
So this is the Washington legislative process, the gold standard view. It doesn't always happen in this way, but this is how it's originally intended to go. And we're going to go through each of these steps one by one. So first is that a bill starts in a policy committee, and the way that the bills are designated into their policy committees is actually political. Leadership does put the bills in these committees. They do try and align the policy of that bill with the subject matter policy, but it doesn't always work this way. So it's important to keep tabs on which committee a bill is going to. So if you are interested in finding all the committees that we have in Washington State, there's actually quite a lot of them. And the website down there is at the bottom. Go to leg.wa.gov and pop over to the legislative committees page. The House has a lot of committees, and the Senate also has a lot of committees. All of the members are assigned to committees, usually based off of what their background is, so that they have a little bit of expertise in this arena. In each chamber, there are matching committees. So House Appropriations, the match for that one is Senate Ways and Means, and the Senate Labor, Commerce, and Tribal Affairs is the House Commerce and Gaming Committee. So they all have a match, and that comes in handy because coming up in the process, we do flip to the other side, which we'll talk about. So in order for a bill to move out of committee, it needs to have a public hearing. The committee has 5 days to notify the public of a public hearing. And that is not 5 business days, that's 5 days total. The public hearings, this is a great time for advocates to provide public testimony. And in another one of our videos, we'll talk about where to find the virtual testimony spot. You can provide written testimony, virtual testimony. You can do all sorts of things, sign in on a bill as a way to participate in this public hearing process. Once that public hearing has happened, a committee decides to vote on the bill, and this vote is called executive session. They either vote to move it forward or keep it in session or keep it in the committee. If they decide not to move it into an executive session, that's another way to say this bill's not going to move forward. If there is some sort of fiscal impact to the bill, then they move to another policy committee, or they move to a fiscal committee after this. And in that fiscal committee, they have to have a public hearing and an executive session. So they have to repeat this process twice before they move forward. All of these public hearings and the executive sessions in any of these committees can be watched live and recorded on tvw.org. It's a great way to participate in the process.
And if you're lucky enough to have the bill you care about make it all the way to the Rules Committee, which is where, you know, once bills have gone through all the policy committees and all the fiscal committees, they get put into rules, which are bills that are ready to be debated on and voted out of either the House chamber or the Senate chamber. So this is an exciting step, an important step for advocacy. You know, this is where you can watch bills on TVW, like Megan was saying, have those long debates. It's really important at this point that most lawmakers are educated on the issue that you're advocating on. This is where lawmaker education really comes through and can really help the debate process if folks have heard from their constituents and they have stories and they're just familiar with kind of the details of the policy, especially when it comes to more controversial bills. And then we, you know, hopefully the bill gets voted off the floor and then it'll go over to the next chamber, the one that it didn't start in, and begin the process all over again. So it'll go back to the respective policy committee, and then it could go to, you know, a financial committee if it has a fiscal note or, you know, a financial impact. And then hopefully it makes it out of the Rules Committee onto the floor. Everyone votes, it passes, and then we get to a point where we compare, did the bill version that left the House or Senate, does it match the current version that also left the House or Senate? And if they don't match and there was amendments or different changes that happened along the way, then the legislators need to do a concurrence process to just align those changes and vote on them again on the floor, just to make sure that everyone is happy with the final version of the bill. And then once that happens, then the bill goes to the governor and he signs it, or she, and then it becomes a law, which is exciting. But there are lots of opportunities to advocate along the way.
And if the governor doesn't sign it, then the bill automatically becomes a law, which is different in some states. That's not the case. It's 5 days. If the governor doesn't sign the bill within 5 days during session, then the bill becomes law. And I believe it's 30 days if it's after session. So this is the cutoff calendar, and while it may seem pretty boring and wonky, this is critical to your efforts, and it's critical to the legislative session. The session cutoff calendar usually comes out about mid-December, and so we should be able to see it coming up. Right now, we had the most recent version we have is the 2021 session cutoff calendar. And this is where you see the deadlines for these policy committee, for the whole process, actually. So the first deadline will have, it'll be, this is the day that it needs to be out of the policy committee. The fiscal committee has another week after that for bills to get through that process. And on and on and on, you will see the different cutoffs. If a bill doesn't make it past that date, I don't want to say it's dead because crazy things happen, but there's low chance that it'll move forward. If a bill does have a really large impact to the state's budget, and or a legislator can make the case that it's critical for the state's budget, then all of these timelines, all of these cutoffs can be bypassed. If a bill is designated NTIB, which means necessary to implement the budget. So come mid-December, go ahead and go to this page to find the cutoff calendar.
Yeah, and one thing also, so there's lots of, points along the process, step by step, where targeted advocacy is really helpful, like focusing on members, in each committee, depending on where the bill is at. And then, it's also just really important to know that this whole process is designed to move very slow. Change takes a lot of organizing. And each biennium, there's an average of 4,000 to 5,000 bills that get introduced. So it is a fierce competition of time and attention. And so yeah, just being very focused and not giving up, because it can be really frustrating how slow change can happen.
Great. So we just breezed through that session. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email myself, megan.moore@kitsatpublichealth.org, or Penny at penny.lipsu@heart.org with any further questions. And thank you so much. Happy educating, happy policymaker engagement.
Happy advocacy. Thank you.